When the time comes, a supermoon triggers a global catastrophe. This phenomenon occurs when the moon is at its closest point to Earth and was once considered an ordinary event. But suddenly, the moonlight began transforming people into werewolves. Millions who became werewolves perished. These days, humans must hide in the most secure places because werewolves possess immense strength and spare no one. The world-renowned Dr. Aranda assures everyone that she will do everything possible to free humanity from this transformation. On the eve of the next supermoon, Wesley Marshall visits his late brother's wife Lucy and his niece Emma to prepare their house for a siege. He boards up the windows with wooden panels studded with nails, electrifies the metal fence, and installs security cameras. Lucy's neighbor, Cody, is also preparing for the attack by testing his weapons. Meanwhile, their neighbor Reagan stops by with a plate of cookies. Lucy shares batteries with her and reminds her to have pepper spray, just in case. Marshall calls out to Cody, warning him about the danger of stray bullets, but Cody defends his preparations, reminding Marshall of their shared past in the military. Marshall bids his family goodbye, reassuring Emma with the story of the 3 little pigs. He tells her he has checked their house and no big bad wolf will get inside. Before leaving, Marshall looks at a photo of his late brother and silently promises to protect his family. Lucy assures him they will manage. Marshall drives away as Lucy closes the shutters and locks the doors. Across the area, people inspect their shelters, ready their defenses, and prepare for a long, harrowing night. Marshall arrives at the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, led by Dr. Aranda. A molecular biologist, Marshall heads the rapid response team. Dr. Aranda introduces the team, which includes Marshall's deputy Radcliffe and biologist Amy Chen. The scientists have discovered that the supermoon causes rapid DNA mutation, triggering lycanthropy. Tonight, they must test a new anti-werewolf serum, hoping to block the transformation. Wishing everyone luck, Dr. Aranda announces the start of the experiment. Amy heads to the laboratory and observes volunteers who have offered themselves for the trial. They are shackled inside an iron cage. Meanwhile, at Lucy's house, she hides with Emma in a play tent. The two laugh and play, trying to distract themselves from the night's impending terror. At the lab, Marshall and his colleagues suit up in protective gear. They administer the serum by dropping it into the test subject's eyes. Dr. Aranda orders the dome to be opened. One volunteer starts to panic, begging to be released, but Aranda refuses as it could jeopardize the experiment. As the volunteers' hysteria peaks, the dome opens, exposing them to moonlight. However, the subjects do not immediately transform into wolves. Aranda instructs Amy to analyze their blood. Back at Lucy's house, she hears a thud against the wall and checks to see who might be outside. In Reagan's home, she hears noises coming from the kitchen. Calling out to her mother and receiving no response, Reagan cautiously peers into the darkness of an open door, unaware of the massive werewolf behind her. At the lab, Dr. Aranda enters as Marshall examines the subject's blood. He discovers a strange parasite-like element. Suddenly, the test subjects begin transforming. Their bodies twist grotesquely, and they break the iron bars, damaging the dome's supports. The dome fails to close fully, letting moonlight flood into the building. Dr. Aranda is exposed to the moonlight and, despite her protective suit, begins to transform. Marshall fires his weapon to drive off the werewolves and drags the injured Radcliffe outside. Amy realizes the situation has spiraled out of control and urges the lab staff to flee. It becomes clear that the serum only delays transformation temporarily as monstrous creatures with devilish ears and crocodile-like jaws continue to propagate. The military orders the scientists to evacuate. Amy helps Marshall carry Radcliffe. They hear a terrifying howl and barely manage to hide in an office as a werewolf attempts to break in. Radcliffe's condition worsens. Meanwhile, Cody hears howling outside and readies his rifle. Lucy spots a werewolf on one of the surveillance cameras. Cody fires at the werewolf in the yard while Lucy watches the battle unfold. Back at the lab, Radcliffe dies. Amy breaks down and Marshall has to restrain her. Regaining composure, Amy suggests staying put, but Marshall reminds her that the wolves have already killed the guards and the doors won't hold them. Cody learns this firsthand when a werewolf smashes through his window. He falls into the moonlight and begins transforming. Amy and Marshall, evading the creatures, reach the security room. They arm themselves and don protective suits. Administering the serum to themselves, they agree not to shoot each other if infected. The pair narrowly escape a werewolf encounter. Finding a vehicle, they speed away from the center. Marshall receives a call from Lucy, who reports seeing wolves enter Cody's house. At that moment, she hears screams and spots Reagan at the gate, begging to be let in. Marshall orders Lucy not to open it, but she hesitates. As Lucy approaches, a werewolf attacks Reagan. The call disconnects as Marshall crashes into a bus. Lucy sobs as Reagan is torn apart outside. Meanwhile, Marshall and Amy escape the burning car and navigate through a city teeming with werewolves. Meanwhile, Lucy spots a werewolf on the security cameras and turns on a faucet, dousing the creature in acid. At the same time, Amy tells Marshall that wolves are pack animals and will hunt them down. She states their options: win, escape, or die. Marshall advises focusing on victory. Suddenly, they see several werewolves searching through cars. The pair sneaks past two wolves, unaware that a third is flanking them. Amy and Marshall manage to hide under a car. The werewolf, unable to pick up their scent due to the serum, moves on. As they emerge, their watches alert them that the serum's effects have worn off, and the sound immediately draws the werewolf's attention. The pair flees, barely avoiding capture. They spot a building with metal doors closing and rush inside just in time. Inside, they hear a child scream and see someone running deeper into the building. Following the sound, Amy and Marshall search for the child but find no one. Marshall recalls that the market building has tunnels leading to the suburbs. Suddenly, a masked individual takes Amy hostage. Amy explains that they are scientists working on a cure for lycanthropy. The masked person advises them to leave quickly, but agrees to guide them to the tunnel's exit. Beyond that, they are on their own. Meanwhile, Lucy watches as an entire pack of werewolves enters her yard. Amy and Marshall reach the city exit through the tunnel, but it's blocked by a metal gate. As Marshall prepares to blow it open, a werewolf descends from above. Marshall shoots at it, but the creature leaps onto them, smashing the gate. As Amy regains her composure, Marshall kills the beast with a piece of the broken gate. They move forward, but just as Amy tries to open a door, Marshall stops her. It's bathed in moonlight. He still has some serum, but it has overheated and won't be effective. Using pieces of discarded tarpaulin for cover, they dash to the nearest store, where Marshall places the syringe in a fridge to cool. Lucy continues to monitor the werewolves via the security cameras, but one by one the cameras go dark. Marshall takes a moment to clean up while Amy rests near the fridge. She reminisces about how the full moon used to bring romance and dreams, longing for a return to normal life. Marshall, however, has forgotten what normalcy feels like, having traveled the world fighting pandemics. Now his priority is his late brother's family. The serum finally reaches the proper temperature, but to maintain it, Amy leaves to find a thermos. Marshall spots a girl standing with her back to him. When he calls out, she turns, revealing a wolf's face. Marshall hesitates to shoot, but Amy arrives just in time, incapacitating the young werewolf with a stun gun. Meanwhile, Cody, now a werewolf, leads the pack in an assault on Lucy's home. Lucy readies her shotgun and orders a neighbor to leave. The neighbor, however, topples a pole onto the fence, disabling the electric defenses. The house loses power as well. Lucy and Emma light emergency lamps while one werewolf gets caught in a trap, howling in pain. Werewolves break into the second floor but fall victim to the traps Marshall had set up. On the streets, Amy and Marshall encounter armed survivors battling the wolves. When the survivors see the scientists, they aim their weapons at them. As Amy and Marshall try to explain who they are, the wolves return. The battle resumes, and Marshall spots a werewolf charging at them. His gun jams. At the same time, Lucy runs out of ammunition and panics, realizing she has only 4 bullets left. Amy and Marshall notice the increasing number of werewolves. When the machine gun falls silent, Amy urges Marshall to reach it while she distracts the wolves. Amy steps out from behind cover, screaming at a werewolf that approaches her. Surprised, the creature roars back. Marshall seizes the opportunity to man the machine gun, killing the wolf and scattering the rest. As they prepare to leave in a vehicle, a werewolf grabs Amy and drags her away. Marshall searches for her in vain before realizing he must prioritize Lucy and Emma's safety. Marshall speeds to Lucy's home as she fires her last rounds. Lucy arms herself with a knife and hands Emma a can of flammable spray, ready to fight to the death. The werewolves finally breach the home's defenses and swarm the first floor. Mother and daughter hide, but a werewolf is about to sniff them out when a car horn blares outside. Marshall has arrived, drawing the creatures to him. Marshall accelerates, plowing through the wolves, but one manages to leap onto the roof of his car. Inside, Lucy and Emma rejoice at the silence, thinking the worst is over, until a werewolf smashes through the nursery wall. The creature lunges at Emma, but Lucy intervenes with the knife. The werewolf tosses her aside, and Emma stabs it with the knife. Lucy grabs a nearby axe and strikes the creature in the back. Marshall enters the house, having pinned the last werewolf to a wall with his car. Lucy and Emma greet him with relief, believing they are safe, but the werewolf breaks free. Marshall makes a difficult choice. He says goodbye to his family and steps into the moonlight. He transforms and battles Cody, now a massive werewolf. Lucy watches as the two beasts clash, and Marshall emerges victorious but fully transformed into a monster. Lucy hides Emma in a cupboard and confronts Marshall with a shotgun. She pleads with him to remember his humanity and their love. Marshall breaks through the wall, advancing toward Lucy, who holds up a photo of his brother. Just as he prepares to attack, dawn breaks and sunlight streams in. Lucy fires at the boarded-up windows, letting in more light, and Marshall reverts to his human form.